What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Conspiracy or Just a Coincidence. I am Jack Allen. First, follow me on Twitter at Conspiracy or JAC. I'm on Gab. Same thing. If you want to support the show, conspiracyorjustacoincidence.com. And that's it. I got Patreon. I always say this, so it's so annoying. I'm sure everyone's heard it a million times. Totally gay. Can't support the show. There's so many content creators. Go support anybody you can that you enjoy the content, that you learn something, all those things like that. Or if you leave a review, it means just as much to me. I love reading. I love doing this. I love that people like it and learn something that's like so important to me, because that the only way we can fight back is to learn what they did before. So today's episode, let me just make sure that I'm live on my channel here. I want to make sure we got no issues. So let me just make sure it's up. And but yeah, if you guys notice two things, I got a new mic thanks to Liv Allen and Bob's Lessons. They communicated behind my back, which is all right. You know, I trust Bob. He's a good guy. I know Liv Allen isn't going anywhere. But they were messaging on Twitter, and she bought it, but he told her what to get. So that, and I'm also not wearing a tank top today because if you don't know, it is winter in Pennsylvania, or getting close to winter. Liv likes to keep the house at like 58 degrees, and I'm not exaggerating with that number. She'll yell at me when I turn on the heat. So she likes it cold, and so I'm like a groundhog. In the spring, I will check to see if it is tank top weather yet again. If it's not, we got to rock sweatshirts and actual t-shirts these days. So that's it. So today's episode, we are going to be finishing. It's called The Secret Origins of WW1. It's just crazy. I know so little about everyone knows World War II. And before reading this, dude, I knew that it started because of the Archduke Franz Ferdinand. That's the story we learned in school, but it's not focused on, even though it was probably one of all wars are devastating and sad, but it was so sad, dude. The whole generations of Europe were lost for pointless reasons. And what we're going to find, it was all due to these people at the top pulling strings. And every war, I'm now convinced, has been started not because of ideological differences, but because of greed, because these people at the top have a long-term plan that they want to start or want to accomplish. And thanks, Steven. I appreciate it, dude. With my new mic, I got my keyboard's all different. But so if you guys didn't listen to last show we went into the Boer War. The Boer War was this war in Africa. Go listen to the show because there's all this super interesting stuff there. But the Boer War down in Rhodesia, Cecil Rhodes town, where the Rothschilds fronted the money, so Cecil Rhodes could go strip the South Africa of their nice diamonds and gold and things like that. But basically, Brits, they would try. There was some Germans there. They wanted to start a war then. It wouldn't pop off. There was a war. We put them in internment camps. 30,000 women and children raped, beaten, tortured. And when I say we, I'm half British, so I guess that includes me more than you. But yeah, so just devastating, horrible stuff. And that's how Winston Churchill got his fame, dude. They wrote, I mean, his story. He crawled through the mud. He for days he survived without water. Escaped their war camps, which they didn't torture, they didn't beat, they didn't starve. They often would let them go. The German, the people that were farmers there, they would let go of the British POWs after somebody would say, "Hey, can you let this guy out?" And they would let him go, but not the Brits. No. They would, like I said, beat, rape, and torture the Boer farming group that were Christians just trying to farm and live in peace. And there's something to this, and I haven't figured it out yet why Germany has been the place that they beat down on so hard, why they've been the enemy of Europe, the enemy of the great powers. I don't know why that is yet. I think it's because Germany still had a monarchy in pre-World War One, one of the only great them and Austria-Hungary. It was a war against democracy, republic versus the monarchies. And I said this before, and I still got to finish that book by Hans Hoppe, but they don't want us to have a monarchy provides these protections that a republic will not give you. And I know that's a crazy thought that you're not really free, all these crazy things like that. Well, I think that that's brainwashing. I think that a monarchy will give you more protection for your country, though the monarchy does not care about you. Do you think the politicians care about you? No. Are you actually free with a elected politicians? I wouldn't say you're free now. So what you can't criticize the king. Okay, well you can't criticize a lot of things in a republic. So this was a war about monarchies and removing nationalism, and maybe because World War II nationalism came about again. So that could be why Germany. But anyway, I'm getting off a tangent. Let's start. So we left last episode. It was around like 1904, I think. We left last episode. And Morocco. What do these elites always do? They pick a third world country to have your war, to try and get you to fight there. So, like we've done in Vietnam, we've done in Korea, fighting the commies there, because they don't want to destroy their own place. No, because they don't actually hate each other. They don't want to destroy, the great powers' land. They much prefer destroying some third world country that they won't feel bad about at all. So Morocco, it is a colony or imperialistic of the French, and the Germans have some stuff there too. And the French, what do? They create, and the Brits, mainly the Brits, they create a false flag event. They create riots in the streets, and two Frenchmen are beaten or hurt or killed or maimed. Well, that's all they need, folks. That's all they need to send in. So what does France do on the news and in Britain? Oh, French peaceful Frenchman is attacked and killed in Morocco. They're just trying to live. What, we can't let this stand. So what do? They send 50,000 troops, 50,000 military people to Morocco. And Germany at this point had kind of taken Morocco and the Sultan under its wing, like, hey, listen, we got your back, because Germany doesn't see what these people are pairing up against them yet. They let them go, and this is Kaiser Wilhelm, by the way. But it's a picture if anyone's just listening. But yeah, so that they tried to bring Germany out in a war right there, but they didn't fall for it, and nothing really materialized. Brits put their ships in the sea around. I mean, they're just doing everything they can to bring this to a boil, because the UK or Britain is threatened by Germany. Germany at this point, Britain was the dominant force for 150 years in Europe and the world. They were a global dominating country, which is amazing in itself, like a small little country. But Germany is passing them technology, economy, weapons, everything. They're kicking the shit out of them. And the Brits, the bankers, they're scared. They believe in this British supremacy or England supremacy at a basic level, and they're not having it. So just and they use their press to lie, all those things like that. So they realized that this didn't do enough. The people didn't hate Germany and the Brits, even though the paper is spewing all this stuff. So they say, okay, we'll get them. Just give it time. We'll get them. So Asquith, who I talked about last episode, there's like these three guys, the Regulus three, and Asquith, he was like the prime minister or someone powerful up in their British parliament. And he uses his buddy Churchill, who at this time is a liberal, the Labour Party, which is so funny because liberals and Labour, they technically stand like the anti-war, all this stuff. But Churchill himself has been involved with 3 wars, if not more. But so he put Churchill in the position to, all right, we need to upgrade our Navy, because at this point they still have coal-powered ships, wooden ships, and it's a peacetime, just like our economy, military, industrial complex. Churchill's in charge of stepping that up and raising the power. And just a quick note, Winston Churchill, this lovely man, if you're watching right here with the top hat, looking very dapper, he is a Druid. And the Druids are a secret society. He became a Druid in 1908. Couldn't really find much what they believe, because all these places, as you know, secret societies, when we look up on Wikipedia or wherever you look it up, they pretty much just talk about like they're into their history. Oh, they're into fraternity and brothership, or whatever you want to call it. Obviously, Winston Churchill and the Druids it's not a secret society because they like to hang out and go bowling together. right? That doesn't make any sense. No, it wouldn't be a secret society then. So clearly they're doing something, whether that's Luciferianism, whether that's sick stuff. I don't know. I haven't looked enough into it. I'm sure someone does know, but just thought that was interesting. So he wants to switch all of his navy from coal power to oil power. And it's crazy that they, like the Titanic, the coal shoving it in. So they're trying to switch that all up. And at this point, there's this group called the Imperial Defense, unelected, unacknowledged, pretty much. Churchill's a member. And basically, it's an unelected military power that's making alliances and doing foreign policy behind politicians' backs, behind the public's knowledge that no one talks about. Do we have that? Did anything? What changed today? Nothing. They do the exact same stuff. Unelected people making decisions behind the public's knowledge that you can't even stand up against. And things have not changed. That's such an important topic. We are the same. And this is why history is so important to know, because we talk about like Fauci and these people who are unelected that you cannot question. It hasn't changed. Just like then, if people said, hey, man, you guys, we're spending a lot of money building warships. We're not at war. And there's people that are living in squalor, that are dying of TB. Why are we doing this? Oh, you must be pro-German. You're not patriotic. They do the same thing today. If you're a white supremacist, you're a racist. It's just the same tactics. The names may change. But this Imperial Defense League has been communicating with France since 1905, talking about building up how they would be allies together in a case of a war with Germany. In 1905, this is 9 years before the war. So tell me again how Germany is the aggressor when they're planning for 9 years prior. Asquith, that guy, and Grey, Sir Edward Grey, who's going to be huge in a little bit. He's in charge of foreign policy. They got caught. They got caught that people are like, you guys have this like unelected group that's making military decisions. Probably an honest journalist that slipped through. And of course they said, no, we didn't do it. The media, the conservative media is against us. The current conservative media, just the same things we have today. No, they're lying. And people defend their side like it's like these people give two craps about you. So the cabinet in Britain even passes 2 resolutions that bans commitments to any foreign powers without their approval. Pretty reasonable. Without the elected people's power, you can't make foreign alliances. And of course, rules do not apply to the people at the top, so they don't stop. Why would they stop? They don't stop. And there was the Kaiser sent an invitation to this one guy to visit Germany in February 1912. And in reality, the secret elite tricked the Kaiser to, like they said, oh, tensions are running a little high. Kaiser Wilhelm, you should invite one of our politicians over and let's talk this over. And so what did this guy do? He goes over to Germany. He says, Kaiser Wilhelm, maybe he calls him Will. Will, listen, we're both building up our arms a little bit. I think let's slow down. We'll stop. We'll both stop. We'll call it a naval vacation. We feel the tensions are right. Let's slow it down. And the Kaiser, he says, yeah, I don't know why tensions are rising, but let's stop. Let's stop. This is crazy. We're spending all this billions of dollars, literally, that our countries don't have. Let's stop. Churchill, who's in charge of the naval building, as I just said, do you think he stopped? Do you think he stopped building his naval ships? No, he didn't actually stop building his naval ships. It was a trick so they could slow the Germans down, who were more technologically advanced than the Brits. So he actually started moving ships out of the Mediterranean and into the Atlantic, surrounding German areas, to not far enough away to like not raise too many suspicions. But if Germany was, they'd say, why is the British ship sitting out there? That's kind of odd. And this is Roberts. Roberts is the British Uncle Sam. So he's a good guy because he's on a poster. He's clearly a great guy. Loves Britain, loves you, wants you the best for you. And you should, he did his duty. This is what the poster says for people listening. He did his duty. Will you do yours? Will you die for our country? Will you die for your freedom? And Roberts, He's this big time, and this story, this like part here is insane. So listen carefully, or listen up, because this blew my mind. So he's buddy with Milner. Milner, if you got to listen to the last episode, but briefly, he's a powerful guy in the British. So you got like Milner at the top of politicians. He makes a politician. He's the crooked politician. If you get his blessing, you're rising. And Roberts is his alternative, but in the military. So if you want to make it to general or whatever, admiral, you have to have Roberts' blessing. Roberts retires in 1905, got equivalent to $25 million a day from the British government. He was an amazing general, amazing. And that's why he got $25 million. He deserved it, worked very hard. But like many in power, it's not actually retirement, right? He hand-selected appointments and put them in positions of power, as they still do today. Who taught at the military schools, who were military attaches, who were training the Canadian and New Zealand troops to be uniformed. Why would you want your colonies to be totally uniformed in the way they fight unless you're planning a war? Roberts was even the first president of the Pilgrim Society. And my boy, the odd man, the ODD man, he just did an episode on the Pilgrim Society. I don't know if he released it yet, but they're basically just like a CFR type group, unelected, powerful, rich people that were in the United States and America, and they were responsible for like trying to bring American capitalism and capitalists and work them with British capitalists. So he's also responsible working with, and here, what do we have here? Roberts is also working with this fiction author that I talked about last episode, who was writing all these spy novels about the Huns sneaking into Britain and as spies, thousands of them invading. He made this horrible like play or movie in 1910, and Roberts said all British men should watch this movie. So even again, in the 1910, we see the military industrial complex working with Hollywood of Britain. It's not Hollywood, I know, but it's their Hollywood, working with media, working with entertainment to brainwash the populace. And that's why I say it's so important to know history, because they do the same thing. They do the same thing. And the enemies change, like, Russia and Rocky movies, versus now North Korea in that one movie. And they just do this. And I'm sure, I guarantee, and white supremacists are next, whatever it may be. So he created this academy of high-ranking officers. They controlled the college, the military operations, the War Office, the Imperial Defense, who were all responsible for military planning of World War I before it even happened. Great foresight on that. And so Milner picked the politicians and business, and Roberts was the military guy. So he had the same goals as Milner, war with Germany. And this is what I wanted to say. This was so insane. Just like an old fart today that cannot see the future, that cannot grasp whatever it is. And I'm not like a Bitcoin advocate. Obviously, it has some wealth, and I don't want to go there, but that's how old people will say, Bitcoin, how could that be valuable? It's nothing, right? Well, Roberts, he believes that machine guns are a fad, that even though they were used in the Boer War, they were used in other skirmishes and mauled down people, Roberts believed they're not going to last. No, the way to win a war is going to be with the cavalry. That's how you win the war, gentlemen. Cavalry, good cavalry and swords, you will win. And doesn't really matter if you're wrong when you're at the top, because it's not your kid that's dying in a pointless war, or a son or a nephew or whatever. But can you imagine what happened? He picks the people in power. So what do they think? Do they think that the machine gun's a fad? You bet they do. So what do you think they stress? The cavalry and swords against an effing machine gun. Crazy, right? Just like older people, sometimes they struggle with change, as you guys know. All of our older people who mean near and dear to us, but just crazy that this Roberts guy he literally thought that the machine gun was not going to last, and horses and swords was the way. So wild. All right, so this is Poincaré, Raymond Poincaré. And I talked about last episode Alexander Izvolsky, who is this Russian guy. He helps the Tsar of Russia is cousins with Kaiser Wilhelm. They're literally first cousins, and he's like, Kaiser says to the Tsar, "We're cousins, dude. Why are we like almost fighting? Let's stop this. Why are we fighting?" And he tried to get him to sign a treaty. Izvolsky, who's a banker's bitch, he allowed it. He stopped that. He got Britain in there first. He was a total degenerate, gambler, and bankrupt. That's how the secret elite used them, and that's how they always use them. So that's why if you are a degenerate, you get into power. So he gets moved to Paris, and there was this prime minister there. So Izvolsky gets transferred to Paris, and the prime minister at this time is a guy named Caillou, who was anti-war. He didn't want to fight. He wanted best for France, not slaughter your young generation. Well, that won't work, right? That doesn't work. So the press, as you know, they kicked him out and replaced him with Raymond Poincaré, who was a pit bull of a warmonger. They love warmongers. They love them. They love them. They always get into power. And how did he get into power? Well, the French funded the Russian debt, 80% of the debt that the Russians had. Now, did the French bank give Russia 80%, pay for 80% of all what they owed and all those things? No. The French bank did not. Oh, here's a France military people. Do you guys know this guy who's kind of small right here? This is, let me get his name correctly. He's Edward the Baron Rothschild, and I probably messed up that order. The Rothschilds, who might be my next episode, so powerful. Well, the one Rothschild controlled everything in Britain. This one controlled everything in France. And so there's two power banks in France, and the rival bank, it was Rothschild. This other guy's bank, they dominated all banks. They could buy out everybody. They could do it. Essentially, they controlled it. Are they competitors? No, they would just switch board of directors every few years just to keep it look like competition. The illusion of competition is what America is built on, right? That is the capitalism that we have today, that great free market. It is the illusion of choice in so many ways, in so many areas. So Rothschild, he didn't just own the bank. No, he owned the most powerful news agency in France. And then his rival bank, what do they own? They own the biggest French advertising firm. I have seen no issues with that. I'm sure their personal beliefs will not bleed into public opinion with their controlling the news and controlling advertising. No, I see no issue there. That's going to be totally fine. So that money was used to corrupt French politics because it wasn't corrupt enough yet. So the taxpayer money would go like this. It would borrowed in Paris by the Russian taxpayer, redirected back to France to provide funds for Izvolsky, and then the interest went back to the Russian people. So these people, the Rothschilds and these bankers, they're so disgusting that they will give a country a loan, a foreign country a loan, charge interest on that loan, and the country in which they got it from or whatever, those people, the taxpayers of those countries, have to pay the interest. And we all know the Federal Reserve and central banking is disgusting. It is usury at its worst. But just even then in 1900s, they've already done this. They've already figured this out, how to control us, how to rob the people. So the French president Poincaré, he changed. What did he do first when he becomes president? Oh, well, he changed the banking laws. Totally out of the blue, I'm sure. He just saw some issues with those. And in 1912, any international loans had to be approved through him. So I'm sure he was very delicate and strict about which ones he let through and which ones he wouldn't let through. Very honest decisions, I'm sure. So Prime Minister, he was Prime Minister at this time. This is important. So Poincaré was Prime Minister at this time. Well, Prime Ministers in France, they change every year, whereas a president changes every 7 years. That's why I think they've had Macron for so long, right? Because it's every 7 years. So Poincaré, they need him up higher, dude. They can't keep doing this every year. So what do? Well, they get Poincaré in there, there's an election in 1912, and who owns the press? Well, the Rothschilds own the press. So pretty easy to trick the people in 1912 because they're just reading the paper and they believe what they read because we're honest people, honest Christians who just believe people wouldn't steer them wrong all the time. So this was their quote: "Should Poincaré fail, which God forbid, it will be a disaster for us all." I think it's a little long of a slogan, but regardless, it gets the point through. Maybe it sounds better in French. And Izovsky even requested from Russian government, which I think I already did that. Okay. It took 3 million francs. So there was a radical paper that was out against Poincaré that was saying, dude, he is a warmonger. We don't want him. Yes, we've lost lands in our imperialistic days. It's fine. It's over. Let's let it go. Let's let it go. So that's what this honest paper is there. What do they do with that? Well, you can't have truth coming out now. No. 3 million francs provided by the banks of Rothschild. They bought that paper and bought out Poincaré's most outspoken critics. Sure, that didn't affect the election in any way. See, and I don't care about Trump. I don't care. But if you can see, this is nothing new. The press destroying somebody when the press is all against you, you lose. You lose because people that don't really care, that get vote and things, they see this. You know how it works. So, and at this point, and this made it even easier, at this time, the general public in France didn't even vote. It was just the upper class. So even easier to corrupt was that they only had to corrupt these people at the top. And at that time, the president was mainly a figurehead. So he's 7 years, but not too much power. It's just like, oh, he's the president. He has these small powers. Well, Poincaré wins, and we can't have that. No. So he changes all the rules to make the president the most powerful person. And when you corrupt all politicians that would stand against it, you have no opposition. So no one stood up, or very few stood up for that. And then the Northcliffe Press, which I was talking about last episode, that was the press that wrote those fiction stories about the evil Huns sneaking into your children's bedrooms at night to slaughter them. All these stories like that. They, as you can imagine, they enthusiastically backed his plan to increase the huge army of France. And the papers also ran an awesome propaganda campaign. If you question the president's belief of enlarging the army in France, you are deranged. You are a secret traitor, scum, evil, horrible person. What does that sound like today? Science denier, racist, whatever. Anti-vax. Can't be around my children. Can't be around our kids. You sicko, you idiot. You don't believe what we're telling you? We've never lied to you. Why would we lie? So Cecil Rhodes, I know I'm getting real into it because this book was like I was so angry. I was so frustrated. We just be lied to all the time. And nobody cares. They're all just too busy fighting over Kyle Rittenhouse or whatever story they feed down our throats. No story. Every story is meant to divide. Every single one. They pick two sides, and you're on that side or that side. And no, I don't think Kyle Rittenhouse. I hope that he gets acquitted, but that's not the point, right? So Cecil Rhodes, he appreciated the importance. This is Cecil. He's standing from all of Africa. That was in their papers. It wasn't meant as a joke either. It was something to be proud of that he's conquered South Africa. But he was in pursuit of a world domination by the Anglo-Saxon race. Rhodes Scholars, most of you guys know who Rhodes Scholars are. He would award it to Americans because he wanted to train Americans in this Anglo-Saxon supremacy, send them home. And I think Cecil was in the club. He was with these. He was funded by Rothschilds. He was funded by these elites. I think Cecil, in his mind, he thought he was building nationalism. He was building a dominating empire of the Brits, and he was proud of Britain. He wanted the world to be under Britain rule. And right or wrong, obviously that's kind of wrong, but I don't think he knew what the plan was, because if Cecil Rhodes was alive today and could see what came out of what he was trying to do, I imagine he'd be pretty upset because globalism has been the banker's goal since the beginning. And I think he was tricked. I think he was tricked, and a front man to take the fall in case something went wrong. So the real aristocracy was the money power that comprised of like rich industrialists, financiers, oilmen who dominated politics and society. And these are all the people that were in the Pilgrims that I talked about that was founded in 1902, promote goodwill between and friendship between the both. This created a pool of wealth and exclusivity that the secret elite could spread values and power through politics and business, all these things. Just like how economic power is invested in a small number of New York family dynasties like Morgan and Rockefeller, and just then that they would invest then in other politicians that would continue this trend. They mentor somebody. It's just a very simple role. Like people ask, like, how could they keep this a secret? How could they all be against you? Because these people get mentored to get into power. They're not going to radically change their beliefs just because they got voted in. So this part's insane as well. Rothschilds, they're closely associated with J.P. Morgan. They love him. They love him. They think he's great. And also Kuhn, Loeb, and Joseph Schiff. And I'm pretty sure Joseph Schiff is the same family of Adam Schiff, that bug-eyed dude. But and I've heard of Cohn and Lieb a million times in my reading. Like they were a bank, all this stuff. They were very powerful, very corrupt. So they made their money selling uniforms to the North in the Civil War, profiteering off of war. And what they do with that profits? They invested in banks. They hired then Joseph Schiff, longtime Rothschild friend whose parents lived in the same house in Frankfurt, to help them get into international banking. Every young man's dream. Every young man's dream dreams of being an international banker one day. I know I did. I knew my favorite bankers, their statistics, how much they stole from countries. The money power sought to convince U.S. that, like Europe, you need a central bank to control your money. You got. This is how we got our Federal Reserve. This is such a crazy story. So, like I just said, Schiff joins Kuhn and Lieb after they sold Civil War uniforms to get into international banking. Well, in 1907, Rothschild and Morgan and Rockefeller, they helped create a crisis in America because we don't have a central bank at this point. We're still relatively free. So they sponsored this guy. They gave him a bunch of money, who had a small bank because there was independent banks at this point, to pump this copper stock because he was probably greedy and a degenerate. So the copper stock flew up and it crashed, as pump and dumps do. His checks started bouncing and that spread like wildfire. So people that had that bank made a run on that bank. Well, then people saw them running on that bank, and they did it to all the banks all over. And I'm sure it's played up in the New York Times. Economic crisis, we will lose everything. You need to get your money out. And so a huge run on the bank. Well, who comes in to save the day? Thank goodness. J.P. Morgan, this was the literal quote the New York Times ran. We won't always have a man like J.P. Morgan to save us. Even then, the New York Times was a piece of shit. They ran anonymous letters praising J.P. Morgan, of people writing in, so brave, so stunning. What an amazing man. Thank you, J.P. Morgan. Rothschilds, they even wrote a nice quote in the New York Times. What a wonderful man of wonderful resources. Wow. If they're complimenting you, it's pretty good. That's pretty good. Then you must be a good guy. So also many experts claim the Rothschilds lost money after the Civil War. And I've seen this before because you like a quick Google search. Oh, they used to have power, but they lost their finances now. They don't have them anymore. No, they didn't. They didn't lose their wealth. They just were smart and had front companies. This is what they would do. A company's going bankrupt. You need cash. You are dire straits. Well, they come in and say, hey, we'll buy your company for you. We'll get you out of debt, which you're probably in debt to us, but we'll get you out of debt. And the only thing is, you do everything we say. Everything else stays the same. You can keep your same CEO or whatever, but we make the decisions. And most people do that. So this diversified their portfolio. They built like American investment capitalists because they were giving all this money. So Europe was also very interested in America at this time because pre-World War I, because they want a war, baby. They want to kick it up. The Brits want to beat down the evil Huns. Issue. They've been spending all their money on warships. Wars cost a lot of money. So who's going to pay for it? The coffers are empty in Europe. They've been fighting for so long, building up the war. They have no money. And back then, there wasn't like, you couldn't like print unlimited fiat cash to pay for things because it was probably based on the gold standard still. So how do you get Europe tons of finances and resources? Well, you bring your little isolationist friend back into the fold. People that said we want no part of Europe's war, we are a neutral country. Well, you got to make them not neutral anymore because they got boatloads of cash and resources that Europe needs to fight a war. So you have the problem, you have the reaction, and here's the solution. So the problem, going back to the economic crisis, run on the banks. The reaction, people panicked. They're running on the banks. The solution, well, the solution is perfect. Politician Senator Nelson Aldrich, Rockefeller father-in-law, so you know he comes from good stock, fronted the drive to have a congressional approval for a central bank. And the Jekyll Island story, you guys know this story, island off of Georgia. They had a train leading up to it, changing servants every day to avoid being seen with politicians and bankers because America was still pretty base then. And if they saw your politicians with these scumbag bankers, these robber barons, they would have freaked out and probably like chasing out pitchforks. And they colluded with other banking conspirators representing the Morgan, Rockefeller, the Pilgrim Society to promote the Federal Reserve. Now, America still had some sense. Nelson Aldrich, because he was such a conceited, narcissistic POS, he wanted to put his name on the document. And, my cat just jumped up. Okay. And they told him not to because people would associate it with Rockefeller, and he did anyway, and it failed. So he failed because he put his name on. But the elite, they are persistent, if nothing else. So the election of 1912 is coming around. Also, William Taft had a big part in saying no. Oh, this was the picture I have is the Paris fair. Okay, come on, you gotta move your tail. Here's another Paris thing. I'm trying to get to, my pictures are, I had them. Oh, here's William Taft. Okay. So Taft, he turned down the Federal Reserve, or the first one. Well, the elite, like I said, they are determined to get it. He's got to go. He beat back the Fed, and he was liked by the public. He was a guy that probably actually one of the best for him. But that can change. The elections are very easy to change. Press, you just got to run some press. So what do? Well, they needed Taft out of the office in 1912, and it looks like he's going to win. He's liked. He's a populist. He's for the people. Well, they run a classic, Mr. Teddy Roosevelt, that great man with the Bull Moose Party that just randomly came out of nowhere. Now, Teddy is a classic. McKinley was the first modern nationwide campaign, and he took over after McKinley died. But McKinley was a banker's toy. But Teddy won that election, and then he said, "I'm going to stop." That was like in 1901 or whatever. And so Teddy finished that thing, finished his tenure, and then he said, "All right, I'm out of the presidency. I'm going to chill." Well, the banker said, "We need to have you to come back." So who do they get? They get J.P. Morgan to donate, the biggest donator to the DNC. Meanwhile, the Rockefeller Foundation or Rockefeller family donates to the RNC. So these two bankers, they probably view things pretty similar. Why would they support two opposing sides? Did Morgan want the people's, anti-war platform? No, they just, again, they do this. They promote so you divide us and ignore them. So the bankers funded both of these, both Teddy Roosevelt and my favorite person, Woodrow Wilson. Oh, my favorite president that had ever existed. The DNC and JP Morgan propped up Woodrow Wilson's campaign, and the RNC and Rockefeller ran Teddy Roosevelt's campaign. Well, this is an issue because people like Teddy Roosevelt, they had him before, and that splits the Taft vote. And our boy Woodrow Wilson, the greatest president that's ever existed, is in office. So you guys know the rest. Woodrow Wilson passes the thing in December 23rd when no one was there, passes the Federal Reserve Act 1913, and that's how they got into power. Isn't that crazy? They ran two people to split a vote to make sure Woodrow Wilson would get in. What's up, dude? And yeah, so just found that so disgusting and sad. All right, so Balkans. So that's how they get the central bank in America. We're going back to Europe now. We're traveling back across the Atlantic. So the Rothschilds, we're in like 1912 to 1913. We're getting close to war, okay? Tensions are still rising. The British are poking, using the Russians, using anybody they can to poke at Germany to get them to react because they know you cannot allow them. They need to be the aggressor to bring the British public on board. So the Rothschild funded Northcliffe Press, the one with the propaganda, the evil Hun, continue that, hitting the public hard with them, slitting your kid's throat and all these horrible stories. Probably not that, I'm exaggerating, but you get the idea. And in 1912, the Secret League already failed twice to go Germany into war. So they needed another way. And they knew Germany wouldn't attack Britain. And that's what they needed, though, to bring the popular support. So what do? The third world country tactic. It always works, or the weak country tactic. So there's nationalistic tendencies in the Balkan region. See, here we are here. You have Romania, Serbia, all these places, Bulgaria, Austria, Hungary. And this map is probably, I think, from like 1914. So these people, very nationalistic, just chaos going on in the Balkans at this time. And I think still now. My knowledge of that is very weak as well. So they need to destabilize the region. Why? Because they need a boiling point. Austria-Hungary, they're trying to just domino effect. So the Izvolsky, the guy who ruined the German-Russia treaty, who's now in Paris, set up a line of command that it looked like it would lead to St. Petersburg, but it was based in London. So I say that so if anyone at a first glance, they'd be like, oh, it's Russia that's doing this, if Germany looked, but it's not Russia. It's London. Looking back now, you can see that. So the Russians, they keep telling Serbia, hey, we got your back. We got your back. Attack your neighbors in Austria-Hungary to piss off Austria. Go do it. We got your back. They're rude to you. They treat you like dirt. And they're doing this in hopes that Germany will jump in. And so there's this guy who, let me see if this is Sazonov. This is like the Serbians shooting their neighbors or something, something like that. Here's 1914. Oh, that's a better map in 1914. So you see there, Austria-Hungary's right next to Russia here, and Germany's right here. So they're neighbors. They're probably relatively friendly. And all this underneath Austria-Hungary, is where the chaos is going. And that's what the secret elite want to cause the chaos in. So Hartwig, he associates with this monster dude of a terrorist, Colonel Apis. And that wasn't his real name. Let me see if I can find. I don't want to skip through all my. Oh, here he is, Colonel Apis. And so Colonel Apis, vicious dude. He ran this group called the Black Hand, which sounds pretty badass. And Apis, he previously slaughtered the previous king and queen of Serbia to replace with a more Russian-friendly king and queen. So clearly Russia is giving money to control these countries that are kind of in chaos. Just like we do today. We prop up governments Russia was doing it then. America does it all the time. You Brits, they all do it. So they changed the king, queen in Serbia. Still nothing happened. So they get APIS to create something that was called the Balkan League. And the Balkan League was this nationalistic, bringing all these Balkan nations together because they need them to stop fighting and they care about them. I'm just joking. I almost didn't fall. I fell for my own joke. They brought them together because this alliance would threaten Turkey, Austria, Hungary, which they would in hope turn to provoke Germany. You see, again, I said in the beginning, this is an anti-monarchy war. The Austria-Hungary was ran by the Habsburgs, which I think I'm not good at my royalty yet, but that, they had that weird like chin and lip, very ugly people. Look them up. They're hideous. Oh my God. Not good looking like my boy Kaiser Wilhelm. But yeah. So anyway, the one Russian guy, Sadnanov, who was like a foreign office guy, he's meeting with Sir Edward Grey and King George in 1912. They met there for 4 days. 4 days on this island. That was like a vacation place. They didn't talk ever about the Balkans. That's what they said. They were just hanging out for 4 days. The topic never came up of tensions rising with Germany. They were just sitting there, sharing crockpot recipes, sharing tea recipes, hanging out, cracking jokes, chilling with the boys. Obviously, they were talking about raising the tensions in the Balkans because Sazonov was the Balkan representative for Russia. So he goes back to the Tsar. He says, listen, Britain is committed to support France in a war with Germany by land and by sea, and they're going to support us. And Russia says, heck yeah. And so the Kaiser heard about this event. He's like, yo, why am I not invited? This is like, why are you guys, isolating me like this? And secretly backed by England, the Balkan League attacked, humiliated Turkey. They stole all this land back. And yet again, this was a ploy to get the Kaiser involved, trying to keep the Balkans, which are relatively close to them, in peace. He said, I don't want to get involved. Do a peace conference. Keep me out of it. And you see the elite just keep poking. They keep poking Germany, trying to get them involved in a war that they don't want to be in. So, and all our history books say the same thing, don't they? They say the Germans started the war. Both wars, they started both of them. But history, as we know, it's just a rough draft of the winner. There's some quote like that I just butchered. In Serbia now, of Apis's hometown, the Black Hand, they're cocky, dude. They're like, we just BTFO Turkey. Yo, we're coming for Austria, Hungary next. We're coming from Albania. And I don't know. This is a tough topic. I don't know enough about Serbia and, all that thing. But the Serbians were very brutal to the Muslims. They would behead them, spiking them, burning villages. And Great Britain, the great moderator, the great peacekeeper of the world, they heard these stories. Did they do anything to stop this from happening? No, they didn't. It's because they didn't want to get involved. No, they needed this to happen. They needed tensions to rise. And Serbia still has Russia backing them. It's great. So it's like that, hey, I'm going to pick on you, and maybe you're a little bit bigger than me, but my buddy over there, he'll come in if you attack me. And that was Russia for Serbia. So that's like a good metaphor. So Serbia keeps pushing, getting closer to Austria. And Austria is loyal to the Albanians and Romania. They're like, you can't push these little countries around Serbia. Like, stop it. And you see how this is heating up, right? Serbia is used as a match to set a fire. And Austria says to Germany, like, let's rock. Let's smash this little place. They're killing people. They're being brutal. And the Kaiser says, just make concessions, give them land, make them happy. Peace is better. Again, we see the Kaiser is trying to calm down the things that the Brits are trying to antagonize him with. Brilliant diplomacy and truly wanting what's best for Europe, not wanting us to slaughter each other over small pieces of land that have been fought over for thousands of years. He said, just be the bigger person. Give it to him. And eventually, when Serbia asked for Russia for help, they turned him down then, because the Tsar had a heart. That's why they killed him in the Bolshevik Revolution. Tsar Nicholas and his family, they were broke. They needed the Rothschild money, and they fell for it. They played their part, but the Tsar, even though they did have Serbia's back, they didn't want a war yet. The Tsar was still nervous about doing this, even though the Brits and France said, "Do it, do it. We got your back." Soreo, let me see what my next photo is. Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Damn, dude, we're going to talk about him in a second. Let me take my drink. So, 1914, Germany still kept the peace, even all this insanity happening. The secret elite saw the Austrian-Hungary link, and they knew this is the way to exploit it. This is how we get Germany in a war. And their military intelligence caught telegrams detailing Russia being behind the Black Hand in Serbia, just like what America does with ISIS, how we fund the terrorist organizations. Russia was doing that with Rothschild cash, funding the Black Hand in Serbia, which was a terrorist organization. This is why they don't teach us history, because we would see through every single thing. They literally have not changed the plans. They literally do nothing different, and just disgusting. So, the bankers funding a terrorist group to cause war. Wonder who else they've done that for. They wouldn't have done it for 9/11, maybe, right? So sad. So sad. All right, so Apis, that big guy that slaughtered the king and queen, he thinks he's like doing the right thing. He's a staunch nationalist. He slaughtered the old king and queen for Serbian nationalism. He wanted them to have self-determinism and once and for all. And so Austria, they're fighting, and they say, and Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Habsburg dual monarchy, is going to go visit this little town. And Apis and the Black Hand, they infiltrated this group called the Young Bosnians. Again, what do we see? Gangs that form another gang or that infiltrate a gang. ISIS-K, it's the same moves. You fund like another little radical group or whatever, and then you can blame it on that group. It just adds more cover. It's like a shell corporations. The Young Bosnians, they didn't think the Black Hand went far enough. They're even more extremist. They're socialist, communistic, liberalistic values, sex, communism, degeneracy. So weird how they're always tied together, right? So not nationalistic like the Black Hand. So Black Hand was nationalistic, which I told you the elite cannot have. So they created a new group to remove that nationalism and institute socialism, globalism, sexual freedom, and all those other horrible liberal values that are shoved down our throats. And what do you know? They had Black Hand or Freemasons in their Young Bosnian group. What are the odds of that? Freemasons being associated with liberalistic values and open sex and degeneracy and all these drug usage? What? No way. I thought they were about brotherhood and fraternity and worship and praying to God. Crazy. I had no idea. So Apis, he still thinks that they're fighting for nationalism. He gives weapons to the Freemasons, bombs, guns, cyanide, and then Apis comes to this realization he wasn't a bright guy. I mean, they called him the Bull. So take that for what you will. But he realizes, shit, these people that are paying me, they don't want Serbian nationalism. The government's so corrupt. They're selling our country away. We just fought for it. So he tries to overthrow the politicians and the crooked installed government. And because he realized his king and government were subordinates of Russia, and this ultra nationalistic guy couldn't take it. And they throw him under the bus as well. So they used him until they didn't need him. We see this constantly. They use people that become the face of a movement, and until you serve your purpose, maybe you get too annoying, you think you have too much power, they take you down. And that's the moment, and then the moment we've all been waiting for, this picture. The Young Bosnians, they sneak across the border, they kill Franz Ferdinand on a trip with his wife, which is like the JFK assassination. I'm not exaggerating, dude. Like the plan of them going, it changes at the last minute. He's supposed to go this other way that has protection. but they don't. The driver doesn't take it. His troops and police are supposed to line the streets. They're lined up on like a different street. It's literally like JFK. It's the precursor to JFK in my mind. It's so weird, and there's definitely connections with this. I haven't found them yet, but there is. It is like what's that, foreshadowing or pre-programming or whatever you want to call it. It's the exact same scenario. So they kill Franz Ferdinand. First, they kill his wife. Franz, she's bleeding, and he says, "Not yet, love. Think of the children." Like a heartbreaking story, and he dies. Instead of taking him to the hospital, they take him to his house. So many weird things, but this ties. So what do they do? They blame Apis. You know, the press starts this crazy rant about, you know, how evil this was. It was the Serbians, because they don't care about Serbia, and all this stuff like that. It's disgusting. And the press, even then, they're talking about how there's this crazy conspiracy that Russia was involved with the Franz Ferdinand assassination. That is insane. People who think that, you are deranged. No, it was Austria-Hungary politics. That's what happened. Russia wasn't behind it, and Russia was behind it, but they need the Brits to support Russia because they're about to go into a war with them, and they can't have them having bad thoughts that they already have. The one guy who was a secret elite member in Serbia, who was like probably started getting a heart, and he was talking to the press that it was a Russian operation or assassination. Well, he suddenly dies out of nowhere at like age 34, and he was poisoned. Apis, who tries to call off the assassination at the last minute when he realizes their goals, he gets arrested and tried, and he gets blamed with everything. The same thing they always do. Let me see that. Oh, this is the Habsburgs. I know it's so small. I don't know why it's so small. I'm sure people know how to zoom, but I don't. But this is the Habsburgs, and dude, they are ugly. Damn, you got to look them up because their whole family tree is ugly. I mean, I don't know how they became king. I'm sure someone knows that listens to history. But dude, ugly. So ugly. This is Russia in 1900s. Another Russia. Oh, that's gray. All right, let's get back to the story. So civilized Europe is stunned with the assassination of the Archduke. They secretly knew they were close. Like, we're almost there. We almost got him. And they're close to having Germany start a war. Because this is Austrian, their neighbor, their other monarchical form of government that's their neighbor. They get along. Their prince was just assassinated. And then everyone knows it's Russia, except the papers, like I said. What are you, a conspiracy theorist? You think Russia did it? No, it was crazy terrorists. It was crazy extremists. Did we arm them? Yeah, well, maybe we armed them. Ugh. Just like JFK. Seriously, right? It is just like JFK. So the Austrians have a funeral for Archduke, and Germany attends. No other European nation attends. They're trying to isolate them. They claimed, we don't want to be assassinated as well because of all these terrorists running around in Austria-Hungary. They're just trying to ice them out. So Austria, after letting the thought simmer, they didn't go and attack Serbia right away, which the elite wanted. Well, they didn't want it because I'll get to it. But they thought about it. They said, okay, let's take a few deep breaths. And they waited like 2 weeks. And they decided, okay, Serbia, this is what you're going to do. You're going to consent to a full investigation with Austrian police officers. You're going to do all these things like that. And that's it. Or you're going to be in trouble. We're going to BTF you. And so the world papers. So this was interesting. Everybody talks about the Astor family and how they died in the Titanic because they were fighting the Federal Reserve and all this stuff like that. And like the Waldorf Hotel people. And I've always struggled with that theory because, dude, bankers and rich people, they want to continue their riches. They do not care about our country. Well, he owned a paper, and he wrote how Austria had every right to submit Serbia to these rules, and even the British papers conceded. So if asked, so you would say, well, Jack, clearly he thinks that it's a terrible event. No, they want Austria to do this to raise tensions even more. So that's why he's publishing this. Like, Austria has every right to declare war on Serbia because they want war. Because then Russia, Serbia's big brother, will get involved in the war, which will start a domino effect and get them all involved with the war. So the British papers, just like they do today, distraction, they ran the story, obviously, but they were busy with their own problems. A civil war was about to happen in Britain. So so they meet in St. Petersburg. Izvosky was there for 3 weeks prior to this big meeting in St. Petersburg about the assassination. Weird how he just randomly went to vacation in Russia after France. But he went there before this meeting, and the lie is told here that the Kaiser instigated the war. That's what they teach in schools. The Kaiser told Austria to attack, to bring Russia into the war, to attack Serbia, to bring into the war. And that's what they tell us. So it's weird that all these encouraged the Poincaré, Gray, the French president, the Serbian diplomat guy, Gray, who is the Foreign Office of Britain. They all encouraged Austria and Kaiser in attacking Serbia. Like, oh yeah, you can't let this stand. You need to attack them. You need to attack them. Why are they doing that? Do they care? No, they want the war. So back home, my boy Winston Churchill, disgusting scumbag of a man, he knew we're almost there, boys. So he's strengthening supply lines. He's got routes to India. This Persian oil company is going to give all their oil exclusively to the Brits. The ships ran on oil now. He's ready to go, dude. He is ready for a war. And the public in Britain, do they know about this? Did they know that a secret agreement was signed with Russia and France that if they get involved in a war, Britain will have their back? No, it was never brought up. Never brought up ever. So Gray even had a meeting and was trying to tell the Kaiser. So Kaiser, he's looking out to Brits like, guys, can you help me calm these things down? Like Russia, my cousin, seems to be really mad at me. And maybe in France, I don't know what's going on. Why do all these countries hate us? And Gray, he talks to the Kaiser, says, hey, we'll talk to Russia for you, dude. We'll get them to be nicer to you. You don't need to stand, but you know what you need to do? You need to stand up for yourself against Serbia because people think you're weak, Kaiser Wilhelm, and you don't want that. But we got your back. We'll calm this down, you and me. We're buddies, dude. We're buddies. So he had a debate, and he avoided any questions to make it seem about Germany, to make it seem non-existent, Gray, I was referring to. And he was like saying, oh, who cares what they do? Because he had a presidential or whatever parliament debate in the Brits, and that question came up. He said, oh, we have enough problems. We're not getting involved in that craziness over there. We got our own problems. We don't care what Germany does, even though they're increasing their military presence everywhere, all those things. Now, Austria should have invaded right away. Your prince is assassinated by a weaker country. You should have gone right in. But they were stalled. Why were they stalled? Well, they were stalled because the other countries needed more time for preparation, all these things like that. And the Austrian-Hungary Habsburg family wanted to find out the facts. They didn't want to act irrationally and be this crazy aggressor, even though people probably would have let them if they did it right away. But it was going to happen. And that secret meeting, Austria said, unless full cooperation of Serbia, we will go into a localized war. And the secret elite made sure Russia would have Serbia's back, which would bring in the evil Hun. We're almost done here. This is great. Here's the British Navy. Look at all these boats, dude. Boats to the eye to sea. People starving, people catching TB and having diphtheria or whatever, scurvy, God knows what illness is. But they can build this for you, though. Don't worry. Look, aren't you proud of your Navy? Look, boats for as far as the eye to see. Yeah, sorry you're not eating dinner tonight, but we did build a big warship, so you could survive on that probably. Ugh, 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 infuriating. So St. Petersburg meeting, the secret meeting, they also had to go to Austria, reassure Austria, and to reassure Russia that Britain and the French have your backs, because Russia wanted to get involved in this European war because they didn't have a war. They wanted Constantinople back from Turkey and Austria-Hungary area. They wanted the Bering Straits. I think the Bering Straits. They wanted some straits. I don't know. Whatever straits are over there in Europe. They wanted those, and they were promised them by France and Britain. Like, if you get in a war with Germany, we're going to get you Constantinople. We're going to get you some warm weather ports. We'll get you. You'll be allowed to go here. We'll maybe even get you some part of China back. All these promises. But you need to get involved in the war of Russia, or you're not getting shit. You got to fight Germany. So the Poincaré, the warmongering president of France, who changed all the rules so he could have more power in 1912, he went to Russia twice in 1912 and 1914. Both of those years, right before or after his visits, war was literally about to happen between Russia and Germany. 2 times. Pretty astronomical odds to think about that. So now, why is the French president going to Russia? Is he interested in orthodoxy? No, he's not interested in orthodoxy. He is going to Russia to reassure the Tsar, who's nervous because he's about to get in a war with his first cousin. We got your back, dude. We got your back. Do it. Go to war. Go to war. We got your back. And this blank check that was of France was written to Russia. And history will tell you that the check was written by Germany to like Austria, Hungary, like we'll protect you no matter what. We got your back. It's not true. The France and the Brits promised Russia, who was in chaos. You have the Bolsheviks starting up. You have horrible living conditions. You have huge amounts of poverty. That they do have a crap ton of people, but that's it. Their infrastructure is dead. And who also, I don't know if I said this in this episode or last episode, maybe I missed it. Russia's infrastructure was so bad, like the Tsar was having a tough time, dude, huge population. Well, France, Rothschild Bank says, hey, let me give you all this money. Stipulation, you got to use it to build railroads and build up your military. So we'll give you, $20 million, Tsar Nicholas, but you can't spend it on the betterment of the people. You need to update your infrastructure. You need to update your military weapons and all this stuff so you could have a huge standing army. Now, did the Rothschilds, they wanted Russia to be protected? Is that why? They wanted them to have a good war team just in case somebody attacked them? No, they needed them to bring down Germany, because Germany and the monarchies were probably not allowing central banks into their countries, so they needed a war to make sure that could happen. That's what all wars are started by this, guys. Monarchies and nationalism, they are what they are afraid of most, afraid of a nationalistic society. And I'm not talking ethno-nationalism, dude. I'm engaged to, I am an Asian. I'm talking, though, about Americans. Supporting Americans is their fear. It's their biggest fear, and that is why World War I happened, because these monarchies were not allowing central banks to come in and rape and steal from their people. So July 23rd, 1914, 10 demands written to Serbia. I think I talked, basically stop all Austrian propaganda, remove officials helping with murder, remove all anti-Austrian people from power. Thanks, Mark. So nice. He says, I love your channel. First time we made it live. But so Austria-Hungary said, you got to remove all these anti-Austrian people from Serbia. And so I'm going to say this is a little rough. They were pretty much requests here that are probably not going to work out, but I get the anger. They just killed your prince. So all the newspapers ran how justified Austria was weeks prior into, demanding something. They wrote oh, this is Austrian aggression. Why? Because the secret elite need them to be the aggressor. This is outrageous. They want to steal Serbian freedoms. Serbs had 48 hours to respond to the demands, and they waited till the last 30 minutes. Why would they do that? Well, they rallied the troops, knowing that they're not going to accept the demands, and this way they're ready for the Austrians when they come in. And their response was, well, we can't do these demands because it's not our fault that terrorists came and killed your prince. It's not our fault. We didn't know. We didn't know. We're good. We love your prince. We would never have done that. And it was written by the secret elite, this response to Austria-Hungary and their demands. And Wilhelm, he was like on vacation, the Kaiser, and he got word of what it was, and he thought, oh, thank God, they're going to avoid war. This was beautifully written. They've made some concessions. I get it. Take the deal, Austria. Take this deal. We don't need a war. And he thought the war was avoided. And the secret elite, though, probably had somebody working in Austria-Hungary, knew it would not be enough. And on July 25th, Gray receives the guy that I showed the photo, the Foreign Office of the Brits, receives a telegram from Russia. And telegrams at this time were easily picked up by like the newspapers and stuff like that. Russia cannot allow Austria to crush poor, weak Serbia, my little brother, and become a power in the Balkans. If she enters, she will face all the risk of war. And we're almost done. And this is how it ends, everybody. This is how this great war, the ungreat war happens. So Russia, let me see what my next photo is. Oh, this is Kaiser Wilhelm and his family. I think this is Germany. Here's Gray, I think. Here's the Russian military. This is a good photo. Guys, one day, my photos are going to be so sick and so big, you guys are going to be like, damn, how does he know how to do all this technology stuff? And I'm going to blow your minds. So now if you're watching on your phone, there's no way in hell you can see half of these photos, but it's better than when I didn't have the photos last week. I figured out how to do that. All right. So Russia begins mobilizing their army towards Europe. And thank goodness for all those Rothschild-funded modern railways, right? Because in 1892, boy, they were not moving quickly. We'll say that. Also in 1892, the great powers, Russia, France, Britain, Germany, Austria-Hungary, they agreed on this. They said mobilization is an overt act of war. We will consider that an act of war if you mobilize your military to a border. Because at that point, diplomacy is over. There is no cell phones then. You can't like stop this train once it starts, no pun intended. And so they all agreed to that. They agreed to that. And Germany knows if they mobilize, it'll wake up the whole alliance thing. It'll start the dominoes, then it's gone. And they are better. I told you, Germany was top dog in technology and economy at this time, and that's why Britain wanted to knock them off. And the monarchy, they were just too powerful because monarchies are a protective form of government for your populace. So they had everything. They had speed, everything on their side, but they lacked lacked time, and that's why Britain was delaying Germany for so long because that was their advantage. And Germany still now has to fight a war on two fronts. They have to fight France and Russia, which are right on their borders. Two-front war. When have we heard of that doing that again? And Britain, they keep saying, guys, are you neutral? Please say you're neutral. Like, we don't want to fight. We don't even want to fight these guys, but please be neutral. And Germany told Britain, we want no part of this. We don't want any part of it. And Gray still holding on to his quotes, oh, the German and the Russian issue doesn't concern the Brits. No. So, but again, I told you, they know they need Germany and Austria to attack first in order for them to mobilize. So Austria, Serbia doesn't meet the demands. They make this like small group. They want to do a localized war as opposed to an all-out war. So they wanted to go to Belgrade. They were going to like seize the city, stay there until Serbia makes the demand. So they're not going to murder all these women and children. They're going to take the city and wait there. Well, Russia says, oh, poor Serbia, we can't let them be crushed. We're sending ours now, boys. And let's see, where am I out of my notes here? Okay. We're almost done. It's 9:46. All right, we'll be done in like 15 minutes. So I hope you guys are enjoying it. We're at the denouement of the event. So Russia's mobilizing. Sir Edward Grey, he's protected at all costs in Britain. His goal again is delay Germany with peace. Let Russia get ready because they're pretty slow. So he's out for the weekend conveniently when Germany calls Mr. Grey. He says, this was because he needed to give Russia more time. He said, so then the King George dined with the Prince of Germany, and he said, I promise you, tell your brother, the King or the Kaiser, we're going to stay out of it. Britain wants no part of this war. We're neutral. We're cool. We're dying in army. We're not going to fight you. And his brother, he calls Kaiser, says, Kaiser Wilhelm, Britain's not going to fight. They're neutral. Like we can stop this war. We can win this war. It's like, this is huge. And everything keeps moving. Germany is blamed in the papers for preparing for war, ready to attack at any minute. They're the aggressors in the Rothschild-ran papers. So on July 28th, Austria declares war on Serbia. Kaiser thinks not all hope is lost. He's still holding up hope. Serbs send back new changes to demands. It never works out. France starts mobilizing as well, hand in hand with Russia. And Germany takes one last chance. He pleads with the Tsar Nicholas, his cousin, his first cousin. He says, dude, please don't do this. We don't want a war with you. Why are we fighting? Stop. And Tsar Nicholas, what does he do? He calls off the mobilization. He says, stop. We're not doing this. This war is BS. We're being goaded into this war by powers greater than ourselves. We do not need to sacrifice millions of Russian young men to death for this pointless war. Well, what do? Telegrams start flying to Russia. They hear about this. Secret elite, they're not going to stand for that. So what do? They break his telephone or wire. They lock him in his room. They go against his orders. Treason, right? Treason. And they just shut him out, and they keep going. Kaiser's still banking on Britain promises. They're also asking Belgium to remain neutral, because if Belgium remains neutral, France can't go into Belgium to attack them even on more fronts. They'll have to go on the French-German border. And the Tsar sends I did the Kaiser, but and then so now Russia's coming to war, dude. After Kaiser begged him, all those things like that. And there's this badass quote in his diary. You should check it out. I'm running out of time, but it's like basically the Kaiser said, I wanted peace. I did not want war. But now that it's begun, let's go get them. Something like that. It was like moving, but yeah. All right, my last point, because it's really not too much. They start like this. That Belgium was super key. So Belgium remained neutral, and Germany said to them, if you don't remain neutral, if you allow France to go in your borders, you will be treated as an enemy. You must remain neutral. Well, if you didn't listen to our first episode, in 1902, the British were working with the Belgians doing military drills. Why would they be doing that 12 years before World War I? This small country. Why are you doing? They're taking out roads. They're figuring out maps, steeples, vantage points, almost like they're going to fight a battle there, preparing for one. And Belgium knows that Brits got their back. They have no choice in this. They're going to side with the bigger ally. And the papers all run about how. Oh, two things. All right, I'm sorry. And this is the last thing, and then we'll be done. So Belgium, neutrality, blah, blah, blah. In the papers, the Britons are making Belgium out like as this poor, like Serbia for Russia, like, oh, this poor country, it's so weak. If Germany goes in there, it is our obligation, it's our duty. our honor as the global peacekeepers. We must protect them. We must keep them safe. So they do that. Then they also start a distraction. A civil war is almost breaking out in Ireland between the Protestants and the Catholics. Now, no one dies, and no outward fighting happens. They buy $8 million worth of weapons. Now, where'd they get those weapons from? Well, wouldn't you know, a spy guy, he was a military guy who now ran a business. He got Germany, this small arms dealer in Germany who had like old decrepit weapons. He bought $8 million worth of these weapons, funded both sides of the Irish War. So in papers, when someone dies, Germany funded weapons for Ireland Civil War when it was banned, and they knew they could not do that. And you see, again, they're creating the vitriol in the press to make Germans the evil Huns. Look, they're trying to destroy us from the inside. They're funding the Irish Civil War, when really it was all Milner, it was all Roberts, it was all these power secret elites. The money was the $8 million was paid for by Rothschild funds, by other corporate capitalists. I think I forget who the exact person was, but they raised this huge armies that do no fighting, and they did it to provide a distraction, to provide, and also this distraction allowed the British Navy to get closer and surround Germany even more. And now you have the protection like, no, we're not surrounding you. We're still neutral. We're just doing this because we're having a civil war. And meanwhile, their papers just keep spreading propaganda like they always do, like they do to us today about whoever our enemy is, China or Russia. And that's what you need, an enemy for the military industrial complex to continue. And the last person, Lloyd George, the anti-war peacekeeping man, the prime minister of World War I. Before he was prime minister, he was the workers' man, a Bernie Sanders type of guy. Well, if you remember, he was a degenerate impregnating married women, which he had the secret elite cover it up for him. And as the last point, he did not stop this war from being declared. Poor defenseless Belgium needs the Brits. It's our duty. They go to war, and the rest is history. 1914, August 3rd, 1914, Edward Grey made this huge speech selling Parliament. They didn't vote on it. There was no debate on it, even though they're supposed to be. You were either threatened, pressured, you weren't allowed to ask questions. And by King George V on August 4th, 1914, war was declared by Britain. And that's it. So that's the show, guys. Let me see if I have any other photos. I skipped through some stuff that I didn't. Here's the French military. I like their blue though, very pretty. Here's the secretly, it's like the those guys are like gray and all that stuff. Here's the cabinet. I think that's and here's Tsar Nicholas. Oh no, this is King George V, who is also first cousins with Tsar Nicholas, and that's why they look pretty damn similar. Here they are. They look like freaking twins, dude, but they're related. So guys, that's the show. World War I was started under false pretenses. It was a monarchical war. The Republic needed to knock out the monarchies to show that the monarchies are old-fashioned. You're not truly free. Without a central bank, who's going to protect you from economic chaos? The monarchy, they don't understand that. You need the central bank. And that's what they did. And that's why, again, I'm saying this, and we're going to do a show explaining why nationalism in a monarchical form of government protects the people the best, as opposed to the system we have today. But they do. Look at Britain. It's people had no power. Its king wasn't really in power. He just did because they needed funding. So the Rothschild bank funded him. He just went along with whatever they did. And they still do that today. They're a front group they lost a lot of their power since then. But all these people, dude, central banks have enslaved humanity. Wars are started to create wealth, to change something in a country that they have that you want or you need to get rid of. And it's a lie, dude. All of our history is a lie. And we are literally enslaved these people. The only way to win is to read, is to learn, is to find out information, to be awake to see what they're doing today. Just like we talked about how the Russians, aka the Rothschild and secret elite, they funded terrorist groups in Serbia to kill Franz Ferdinand. What do they do today? They do the same thing. Same thing. CIA will fund groups of terrorists to set off a riot or to create chaos or to remove freedoms, to write the Patriot Act. And this was over 100 years ago. Their tactics are the same. Their mindset is the same. The goal is globalism. The goal is a totally, utterly degenerate society that has no family, that has no love, that has no religion. And that's how you break them down. And then you will just be subservient. You will listen to your new gods, the politicians, and you will be the slave class. So how do you fight back? Read, learn, farm, family, love, happiness, and don't give them any of our energy, everybody. Keep supporting content creators. And I'm not saying that like because of me, but support whoever you like. I don't care. But support somebody because that's the only way people can keep doing this stuff. Because they've removed out, they're terrified of us waking up and seeing the red versus blue scam when the answer doesn't lie in that. So that's it, guys. I'm Jack Allen. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks for commenting. I think this was the most people we had in my live streams. And next episode, I did go vote on my Twitter. I did a poll what you want the next topic to be. It's either the Rothschild history, Program to Kill, like MK Ultra book, the DC architecture and Freemasonry, or the history of the Rockefeller. So go check it out. And thanks for listening. I'm Jack Allen. Thanks, Dee Dee, for the nice comments, dude. And have a good night, everybody. We'll talk soon. Peace. I'm out.